Okay, I'm going to talk about the second key, matching your production cycle to your available forage resources. I guess what I'm trying to say here is I want to match what my ranch produces to what my cow needs. This graph here is a forage availability curve. It's accurate in most of North America, except in the Mediterranean climates or fescue country. But, forage availability, nutritional value is fairly low till it starts and peaks fairly quickly in the spring, gradually slides off in the fall. This graph is an animal requirement curve. This cow is a cow that's calving, late winter. In our country, that would be March. In your country, it'd probably be March, September. We'd have to go to the equinox. And she's having her calf weaned who knows when, but that doesn't really matter right now. Let's see what happens when we put the cow on the ranch. Again, the green line represents what my ranch produces. Red line represents what my cow needs. Now, this is fairly status quo calving, at least in America. And I suspect, based on who I've talked to here, it's not much different. Do you see a problem? Yeah. Right here's the problem. My ranch isn't producing what my cow needs. So I put the dollar signs there because that's the only way I know of to make this thing work. I've got to dig into my pocket and start filling in that gap with nutrition, because I can't calve out here and expect her to breed back without doing that. Have you ever wondered why wild animals don't have their babies in the winter months? It amazes me at how many people have never thought about that. My theory, and this is probably something that came from my dad and a couple other people that I have mentored me, but look at nature. There's a lot we can learn from nature. We didn't invent anything. We're just doing things the wrong way if we're not looking at nature. The reason they don't have winter months is forage availability. That's one of them. Now, for some of you in certain environments, that may not always be true, but it's somewhat true. The other thing is the daylight period, day length. I don't know everything I need to know about day length, but I know it's critical. I know there is some research, university research out there that says that heifer calves that are born closer to the first day of the year will start estrus, come into estrus about 3 months younger than heifers born at the equinox. So there's something going on there, that the Creator had in mind, and we just as well pay attention to. Okay, this is the same ranch. Green line is the same ranch. The red line is the same cow. Nothing has changed over on the right-hand side. The only thing different here is now we're calving late spring, early summer. In this case, this would be middle of May, June calving, which would be middle of November, December calving. Now, it may be different for some of you, but, you need to pay attention to what is going on out there. I can look at the wild ungulates, ruminants, like deer, elk, bison, moose, this is when they have their babies. Why would a rancher start having babies a lot earlier? He wants his calves bigger. If I can start calving a month ahead of my neighbors, I'm sure they're going to have bigger calves. Bragging rights. Okay, this area out here that is no longer there, in my part of the world, represents about $80 per cow. Because I can't calve where that other cow was calving without putting $80 extra into her. A penny saved is a penny earned. $80 saved is $80 earned. It's not nice or profitable to fool Mother Nature. I used to try to fool Mother Nature. Some of you are still trying to fool Mother Nature. If the payout is really good at the end, I mean, you get a lot of bragging rights, you better just keep doing it. But that's about the only payout you're getting. Unless you're hitting a unique market and everybody wants their calves to weigh this much on this month. I like to talk about a ranch not too far from us, about 60 miles from us, and this is back in very early 1990s. I mean, we were just part of the herd, status quo herd. I mean, everybody was calving in March, which would be your September. Some were calving earlier than that. But we would have these get-togethers one Sunday a month, Sunday afternoon a month with what we called it our BS session. But it was basically the forerunners of the herd quitters. I mean, we challenged everything we could challenge. But Don Palmer went to a Dick Diven seminar. I suspect Dick's probably been over here. He's dead now, but I'll bet he had some seminars here. What did he? He hasn't been here for a while. No, he hasn't been here for a while. Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, Don went to that. He came back and reported to the rest of us. And Don said, okay, we're going to go from calving in mid-March, which is mid-September, to mid-May, which is mid-November. And we're going to start our heifers the 1st of June, which is the 1st of December. And I don't know if I should tell it. I'll tell it later. The first thing they noticed that they reduced their feed and labor expenses by about 70%. Now that makes ranching more profitable and enjoyable. You know, if you don't have to be out there in your winter clothes slogging around, you know, guy I'm traveling with, Steve, has got a neighbor that started calving well, in early February, I suppose. And early February in Nebraska right now is below zero, 26 degrees, snow, and he's telling everybody how I don't know, they want sympathy, but I'm not giving him any. The other thing that happened is now they're receiving about 90% of their calves in 30 days. They couldn't do that when they were calving back in March. 90% in 30 days. What do you think happened to their weaning weights when they went from your September to your November? Bigger weaning weights when they calved 2 months later?
Well, they've got more nutrition.
Yeah?
I'd say they don't lose anything by doing it.
Okay.
Is what I would mean.
Yeah. In reality, each individual calf will wean lighter. But we've expected that. I expected it to be really lighter. I mean, these guys are going to lose their shirts. But they didn't. The thing I wanted to point out here, and this may not affect you guys so much as it does us in Colorado, but even though their weaning weights were smaller, they're weaning more total pounds per acre or per ranch. More live calves. Dead calves have distressingly low weaning weights. So let's go through, and I'll kind of use my ranch and their ranch as a pattern here. The advantages of what I call calving in sync with nature, a better way of looking at calving in sync with your forage resources. You want to have that cow on the best, gaining forage resources when she calves, before she calves. She needs to be gaining weight. If she's gaining weight as she gets to calving, she's going to get bred. If she's thin, she might not get bred. But the advantage is reduce feed and labor expenses by 70%. 90% of the calves are born in the first 30 days of the calving season without feeding any hay. Weaning more total pounds of calves, again, more live calves. Who can answer the rest of that sentence? Say that again. Yeah, but that's not right. That's not the right answer yet. That are worth more per pound. Smaller calves are worth more per pound. So we're weaning more total pounds that are worth more per pound. Where's the downside? Labor saved, feed saved. Again, we've worked fairly hard as an industry to do all the wrong things. Johan, another thing he said to me last time I got together with him was, beef producers around the world have done a marvelous job of measuring all the wrong things. And when you select for higher and higher growth rates, you're doing a marvelous job of selecting for all the wrong things. Yeah. We'll talk about that a little more. Number 4, almost eliminated predator problems. In our part of the world, the coyote would be our only predator. There are a growing number of ranchers that have to deal with the wolf. And that's a tough one. I've seen videos of a wolf run off with a baby calf like a coyote runs off with a jackrabbit. I mean, they're huge. Coyotes are scavengers. I mean, they really don't want to put up a fight with a cow to eat that calf. So why are we seeing less and less predator problems? Other prey. Yeah. You know, if you're calving in the snowstorm, there ain't much else going on out there. That calf looks pretty good, and you know, we'll get our buddies together and we'll have us a feast. But if you wait, you know what I've seen more than once, a coyote going through our cow herd eating afterbirth and calf poop. Now the cows are watching him. They're a little alert. They know where their calf is. But that's nature working together. He's not a threat, and he shouldn't be a threat. The last thing here is we've almost eliminated calving problems at abnormal presentations. And I didn't understand that, you know, prior to this, and we were calving in April, which would have been September or October? No, October. Yeah. Don't argue with me. So we didn't move very much, but I remember having maybe 5% of our calves with abnormal presentation. A leg back, breech, backwards, head back, leg back, you know, whatever. I mean, I thought that would be an abnormal year, but we'd always have something. But one year we just had it all the time. So what do you attribute that to? Huh? In sync? I don't know exactly what it is. A guy in North Dakota University said it has to do with the photo period. I think he just made that up, but you know, I don't understand everything about the photo period. I do know, you know, we're doing everything naturally. We never shut cattle up to calve them. I mean, they're still in a rotational grazing system, calving. They have room to slip away from the herd, but they don't go too far away. I mean, that's another predator issue. You know, if you got cows going way over the hill to have a baby calf, she's putting that calf at danger. So any more thoughts about this? Did we do any different handling our cows before calving? The difference I can see is that we were feeding hay. And we had to if we're going to calve out of sync with nature. So we were feeding hay, and I don't know, again, I'm not familiar with different parts of Australia, you know, somebody in Australia is doing it just like we do in Colorado, or did. But whenever you move into, you know, we knew because the universities told us that if you feed at night, you're going to have most of your calves in the daytime. Well, that makes sense and it works. So we'd go out there every evening and we'd start rolling out a bale of hay, and all the cows would come running to the bottom without their calves usually. You know, if you take, that's an unnatural situation. A feed truck during calving is unnatural, or even before calving. Right. I think anytime we can stay closer to nature, we're better off. I told you about Dick Divin telling Don Palmer, said start calving your heifers the middle of May, start calving, or your cows the middle of May, start calving your heifers the 1st of June, which is middle of November, 1st of December for you. And my initial thought when Don told us that, that's Dick Divin's stupid. He don't know nothing. All the universities tell you what to do with your heifers. Calve early, so that they have more time to heal up and breed back. So when Dick Divin, Dr. Dick Divin, said this, I said, okay, I'm not buying that. But I didn't close my mind. We were still calving too early at that time. We breed our heifers to calve the same time as the cows. We calve our heifers with the cows out on open range. We were already in our rotational grazing system at that point, or practicing our rotational grazing. Calving out of sync with nature kind of puts a halt to your grazing system too. But a lot of our heifers would calve right at the front end. I mean, they were ready to get bred when you turned the bulls out. They had some of the first calves. And a lot of those heifers, because we don't treat them very well, were thin when they had those calves. And a lot of those thin heifers did not breed back because of what we were doing. Now, I remember one red heifer, and she did not calve she was like 45 days late into the season. She was fat, she was slick and shiny, she was healthy. She had her calf 45 days late, and she calved within the first 5 the next year. So what's that tell you is Dick Divin knows more than you think he does, and probably we should move all of our herd to the 1st in June instead of the middle of May. So if your cows or your heifers are fat and gaining weight when they calve, you can't hardly keep them open. If they're thin and not gaining weight, it's hard to get them bred. A lot of people, and I was one of them when I was still calving too early, I said, okay, I'm timing my deal so that when the cow comes into peak milk, that's when my best grass is. That's true, but calving when the peak grass is more important than peak milk. So this is the third key. This is matching cow size and type to your available forage resources. This is where I get even more passionate. We are in the genetic business. We do sell bull semen to other ranchers. We've been on the same focus, increasing pounds and profit per hectare for over 30 years. And this is where genetics has a lot to do with that. What I want is a cow that can survive strictly on what my ranch produces with no inputs. Now that's probably impossible. But we just as well start out thinking that's what we're going to get to. Now Alejandro in Mexico, he's there. I want to review some basic facts before we get into this. This kind of sets the stage, makes us think a little bit. At least 65% of annual cow cost is spent on feed. Feed and pasture is one of my biggest expenses. 70% of the feed your cow consumes is strictly for maintenance. Only 30% goes towards production. What do we get paid for? Production. So when I look at that as a businessman, I'm going to say, okay, 70% of every dollar I spend on feed and pasture has no return. Now, I may not be able to change that, but that's going to adjust the way I think about things. Bigger cows eat more than smaller cows. Anybody disagree with that? That used to be, you could start a fist fight with that statement 15 years ago. You know, I could say something about a rancher's wife, but you better not talk about his cows. Bigger cows require more feed for maintenance. Bigger people require more feed for maintenance. It's a no-brainer. But we will try to justify what we do and why we do it and how we do it just because that's where we are. That's not looking outside your box. That's saying, I want to stay in my box. I don't want to hear what you have to say. I'm not changing. And you better not say anything bad about my cows. The next one is high milking cows also require more feed for maintenance. That makes sense? It takes energy to make milk. Let me finish that statement. Heavy milking cows require more feed for maintenance even when they're not lactating. How many of you knew that? 1, 2, 3, 4. I told you. Yeah. Most people do not know that until I tell them. So, you know, a lot of people say, well, I want a heavy milking cow because I want bigger weaning weights, and they don't think that that cow's any different. I'm having a hard time seeing you guys. Even when they're not lactating, their maintenance requirements are higher than a low milking cow. And when I look at that, what I see, I look at an engine. A heavy milking cow has a high octane need, a big engine that needs high octane fuel. It has to do with visceral organs, and that's your internal organs. She's just built differently. Whereas a low milking cow, you know, she has a smaller engine, maybe run on diesel fuel. So we know this to be a fact. It's true. Heavy milking cows require more feed for maintenance even when they're not lactating. So let's say that Stuart has, I'm going to pretend you have some heavy milking cows. And I have some lighter milking cows. Or maybe Maddie has some lighter milking cows. And you guys are going to send your calves to the same feedlot at the same time of the year. So you're sending your steer calves to the feedlot. That steer calf is never going to produce any milk, is he? Not likely. But what do we know about those calves? Maddie's low milking came from low milking cows. Stuart's came from high milking cows. Right. The ones with that big engine are going to eat more before they gain a pound. The ones with a smaller engine, they can start gaining pounds a lot quicker. And what we're talking about is maintenance requirements, and I may bore you with that term, maintenance requirements. You know, a cow has to meet her maintenance requirements before she can gain a pound and before she can reproduce. A calf has to meet his maintenance requirements before he can gain a pound. It bothers me when the so-called beef experts in the beef industry refer to milk as a maternal trait. I know why they do it. When you get I'm going to tell you, it's not a maternal trait, it's a growth trait. Why would I want more milk in my beef cow herd? To do what? Bigger weaning weights. So milk is the most inefficient, expensive growth trait that I've ever dealt with. And I want to use a study that was done at the USDA Center in Miles City, Montana, to demonstrate that. Let's assume that there's a cow and her calf right here in front of us. This calf is 150 days old today. If I wanted to wean that calf today, could I do it? Yeah, nod your head. Or say yup. If I wanted to leave that calf on his mama for another 150 days and wean him at 300 days, could I do that? Yep. I can do whatever I want to in that range. Their study, and this is going to be a little surprising too. Their study says, if I said something, I'd have scared him probably. Their study says that if we separate that cow and calf, we can get the exact same gain with 15% less feed than if we leave them together. Hear that? If we separate the cow and calf, we'll get the same gain with less feed, 15% less feed than leaving them together. What does that tell you about milk? Not very efficient. For every dollar I put into this cow to grow this calf, we're losing a bunch somewhere. Now I'm going to stop there and I'm going to say I'm not a proponent. I am not a proponent of early weaning, except as a drought management tool. That's other than knowing how much grass you have ahead, that's the first tool, second tool you pull out of your toolbox. And you can wean those calves at 90 days if you want to. But that's the reason that works. As soon as you separate that calf, put him on a higher energy ration, send him to town, do whatever you want to. Now that cow can continue to go because she's not lactating. She doesn't require near as much feed. So that's a great tool to use. I'm not a fan of early weaning other than a drought management tool. I prefer situations where you can leave a calf on its mother till it's 10 months old. Heifer calf especially. And the reason is because mom teaches that calf things that you can't teach that calf. Okay, there's a direct straight line correlation between cow size and cost of production. Would it be safe to assume that most cows in Australia are too big? Have I convinced you of that yet? Okay. Why do most ranchers have cows that are too big? Weaning weights. Do big cows always have big calves? No. This is research out of North Dakota University. Chris Ringwald separated his cow herd, the university cow herd, into 5 groups based on their weight. And this is converted to kilograms. So these are the smaller cows up here, the 563s, and some of them weigh as much as 770 kilograms. That's a huge cow. But there's a lot of them in the U.S. There's probably some here. Look at the percent weaned. We talked about this earlier. Smaller cows will almost always wean a higher percent of their weight. These smaller cows here will wean 50%. The big cow can't wean 34%. But now I want you to look at the actual weaning weights, again in kilograms. Follow my red dot there from the 280 down to the 259. What's the trend there? Yeah. The bigger the cow, the smaller the weaning weight. What happened?
Kept the nutrition.
Yep. Again, we're talking about maintenance requirements. These big cows do not fit any real world environment. I mean, in a really, really good year, when you have grass that you can't eat up, they're going to have bigger calves. But right now, she can't survive, much less produce milk or breed back. I will speed up a little bit, but to me, this is a powerful thing. I got in an argument, short argument the other day at Rocky. No, I ducked. What can I do to match cow size and type the resources on my ranch? Here's the 3 things I came up with. Require my cattle to live within their means. They must be able to produce with minimum inputs. What we did 30 years ago when we said, okay, we're going to take a different approach. We don't even know where we're going to end up. We don't know where we're going to find the genetics because everybody else was doing this. And we said, no, we want to increase profits, not weaning weights. So we started taking away the inputs. We would stop the hay feeding. We would stop all supplements except for mineral and salt. We would stop our vaccinations. pesticides, just start taking things away and adding more cows to the herd. So we knew kind of what was going to happen. You know, the cows were probably going to get smaller. They were going to get easier fleshing. They had to get lower maintenance because they had to do it. So that.
Fair bit of culling of the herd.
Yes. Let Mother Nature do the calling while we showed no sympathy for open, laid, or dry cows. Produce and purchase cattle that fit our environment. You know, this is what I find. Well, let me ask you this question. If I continue to use the wrong type of bulls, how long is it going to take me to produce the right type of cow? Forever? Yeah. But you know what? Most ranchers in America and most ranchers in Australia are doing just that. And don't want to admit it. You know, we'll talk about what I think the right type of cow is, but a lot of ranchers in America, I've talked to them here, and I'm not going to well, what's 11 to 1,200 pound cow? That's you're 500 kilo. A lot of ranchers say they want a 500 kilogram cow that can wean 50% of her own weight for many, many years, not just 1 or 2 years, without being pampered. And then you ask those ranchers, or you ask about the bulls they're using, and they're using bulls that were produced by, now in my case, instead of 11 to 1,200 pound cows, they're produced by 1,400 to 2,000 pound cows. How big is that? Big. So what they're doing is trying to make, you know, I'm trying to moderate cow size. I want easier fleshing cows, but they keep buying big, the fattest, the biggest bulls out of the biggest, fattest cows that are fed heavy to get that, stay in the herd. Yeah. Number 3, we must be willing to get rid of all cattle that do not fit our environment. How are you going to identify the cows that do not fit your environment? They're not pregnant. Be tough on them. Be tough on them. If they don't get bred, that's the ones that you want to get rid of. We've concluded, and we've been at this for 30 plus years, but here's the things we've concluded. Number 1, low maintenance requirement is the most important thing that we need to select for. Now, you can't just go out there and select for that. You know, it's tied into growth, milk, and frame. Low maintenance is a factor of growth, milk, and frame. So as long as we're still selecting for bragging rights, you're never going to get here. Low maintenance is critical for fleshing ability. She has to meet her requirements before she can start putting on fat. She can't breed back until she starts putting on fat. So it's critical for fertility. Okay, a lot of people don't understand, and there's people in this room think they have low maintenance cows. I don't think there's very many low maintenance cows belong to people in this room. But in America, you know, I like to compare what we call the status quo Angus breeders to us. Status quo I define as, I look at the 3 or 4 largest AI companies, because that's what all the stud breeders are using, and they're selling those bulls to all the ranchers. So status quo are the 3 or 4 AI companies. Now Angus has an EPD for low maintenance. It's called a $EN. The higher the number, the lower the maintenance. The lower the number, the higher the maintenance. We found a way to score this with 5 stars, 4 stars down to 1. If they're in the top 20% of the breed for low maintenance, they're 5-star. If they're in the next 20%, it's 4-star. Middle 20 is 3-star, and so on. Bottom 20% is 1 star. So you can see here, the bulls that are most prominently used in the U.S., 51% of them are in the bottom 20% of the breed. 7% are in the top 20%. This is about 3 years ago, but this is the set of bulls we were going to sell in our spring sales a couple, 3 years ago. 100% of our Angus bulls are in the top 20%. I just looked at the bulls we're going to sell in this spring, 3 spring sales, and 98% of them are in the top 10%. I mean, we're not kidding when we say low maintenance. I mean, when we started this, there was no EPD. I was happy to see that the EPDs mean what they're supposed to mean. Okay, a frame score of 3 to 4. I don't know, you guys probably don't do as much with frame score here as we do, but the stud breeders probably know what I'm talking about. Frame score of 3 to 4, most of the bulls in Australia are going to be 5 to 7. So this is going to be a smaller animal, but maybe not that small as you think. Frame score is very indicative of maintenance requirements. Weight, not so much. I don't have so much trouble anymore because my audiences are getting more and more educated. They're not selecting for bragging rights as much as they used to. But it used to be when I would start talking about a frame score of 3 to 4, there'd be kind of a panicked look on some faces. And it wouldn't be unusual for somebody to slap his notebook shut and walk out. And what he's saying, he says, you know, I've listened to this crackerjack all day, but I'm not going to listen anymore. What's so offensive about 3 or 4 frame score? Graham, is that offensive to you? Well, why do you think somebody else gets offensive? Not what they got. Here's what I think. I think it reminds them of the belt buckle high cattle that were so popular 60 years ago. That's a perception that's real. Not very many of us remember that. How many of you believe? Nope, I won't ask that question yet. Back in these days, we did not have frame scores, but they measured everything. I mean, I know the family that showed this calf, and he had all the measurements on him, so I know what his frame score is. Going back with those measurements, I want to know what some of you think it is. 2.5, 3. Frame score taller is a bigger the number. And I'm talking about like a 9 to 1, 1 to 9. Most places, and sometimes I will have several customers in the crowd, and I will get answers like 4, 3, 2, and 1. He's not a 4. I don't know who said 3, but he's not a 3. He's not a 2, not a 2.5. Somebody had that answer. He's not a 1. He's about 6 inches less than a 1. So when I say 3 to 4 frame, this is not what I'm talking about, but there are many that have that misconception that this is what we're talking about. So just for the fun of it, there's nothing magical about frame scores. It's height adjusted to age. So let's talk about a 4 cow. I said 3 and 4 frames and bulls. How tall in? Say that again.
Can I ask you something before you go on?
Oh, okay.
Well, so really, were they pretty efficient cattle? Those little cattle, they're proper little cattle. So, were they terrible cattle or?
I wouldn't say they're terrible. There are people in this room that would say that I want that because they're grass finishing. You know, they're extremely low maintenance, but they probably took it a little too far. Right, right. Hey, you would have no bragging rights. How tall in inches is a 4-frame cow, mature cow? Just guess. 50. Is that a guess? You knew right. He's right, 50 inches. So 50 inches on me is about right here. And the reason I know that, I measure up from the ground. The reason I do that is because I can walk through my cows, your cows, and I know where this is 50 inches, this is a 4 frame, and you can pretty well tell, are those cows 2 inches taller, 4 inches taller, 2 inches shorter. And I want you to see that, yes, that's not a tall cow, but it's not a, no. My son Tyson, who's sitting out there in the sun, said, probably ought to measure again, you're shrinking. Yeah. We have some thick, easy flushing 4-frame cows that weigh 1,200 pounds. Some weigh 1,300 pounds. And I don't know what that is, but you don't need to. That's a big cow. And I'll show you some pictures. I mean, they're not little cows. What's a 1,200 pound cow? 550. I think that's right. Okay. The difference between frame scores is 2 inches. So 50 inches is a 4 frame, 56 inches is a 5 frame. What's a 3 frame? 2, yeah. 52 would be a 5, 48 would be a 3. Here, there will be a real quick test, so pay attention right now. I haven't seen anybody fall asleep yet. There's 4 inches of difference between a cow and a bull in the same frame score. So a 50-inch cow or 4-frame cow is 50. A 4-frame bull is 54. A 5-frame bull is 56. Nope. Yeah. Now you have to get this because this is important. What height? Okay. Where do you measure to get this? Picture this. We've got a cow standing there. We put a carpenter's level over the back, right above the hip bones. And then you measure from the level to the ground. Yeah, but it's not, we call it a hip height measurement, but that's wrong because we're not measuring from the hip. We're measuring from the top of the back, above the hip. Yeah. Okay, we have some thick, easy flushing 4-frame bulls that weigh a ton or more. There's a 4-frame bull, Sneaky Pete. He could easily weigh a ton, and I wish I knew. What's a ton? 2,204 kilos? No, a ton is 2,000 pounds. Our ton is 1,000 kilos. He's over, huh? And that's probably where he's at.
Everyone knows what a ton is. We talk about tons as well.
Okay. But, okay. This is a 4-frame bull. Here's a 3.5 frame bull, again, weighing over 1,000 kilos. Well over. Here's a 3-frame bull. Still, that bull didn't spend much of his life weighing less than a ton. Now, the other misconception a lot of people have is they say, okay, I know what a 6-frame is because that's the kind of bulls I've been buying. That's what my stud breeder has. So a 3-frame bull is half that size. 6-frame, 3-frame. You see what's wrong with that? Here's the test. What's the difference between a 6-frame bull and this 3-frame bull in inches? How much? 6 inches. Well, you learned that the other day in Rocky. It's not fair to come twice in a row. Where are we going to find most of that 6 inches? That's right. Can you eat that? Does it weigh very much? No. Ironically, our 3-frame bulls weigh more than most people's 5- and 6-frame bulls. It's not just height. Look at the bull. Okay, a mature cow weight of 11 to 1,250 pounds. Again, that's somewhere around the 550 mark. I don't like to use weight anymore. It does not tell me much unless I know how high what the height is and the condition is. And this is the reason for that. These cows are the same age and same weight. They both calved 60 days prior to the picture being taken. They're both being fed exactly the same. Which cow has met her maintenance requirements and is ready to breed back? Which cow's not going to breed back? Yeah. Right. Okay, we want a cow with a lot of volume and capacity. I'm going to go through some pictures here. These are mama cows. Nothing special about these cows except that they have survived in our program and keep doing what we ask them to do. That's a 3-frame cow. Most of the cows I'm going to show you are 10-year-old cows. There's Parker's or whatever. This is Parker's grandma. One thing you notice here, anytime you have a cow that's over 10 years old, they almost always have a ewe-neck. Cows with a straight, masculine-looking neck don't last that long. The other thing I want to point out here is the wedge shape of these cows. You know, this is something we didn't select for. It just happens when you force the cow to do what she's supposed to do. But when you look at that cow from front to back, she just gets deeper and deeper. If you're looking on the top of her, she does the same thing. She just gets wider and wider. Okay, we're going to look at some bulls. Again, you know, I just want you to look at the massiveness of these bulls. This is a 3-frame bull that still weighs a lot. Colorado Hobo. It's a 2.5 frame Hereford. He was 11 years old when that was taken. His mother was still going at 17. You know, if we're interested in longevity, fertility is probably the most important thing. And low maintenance is the most important thing for fertility. This bull's 10 years old when that picture was taken. He was used till he was 10 or 11. That bull is a flush brother to that cow I just told you about. Okay, we talked about the wedge-shaped cows. You see the wedge shape in the bull? Opposite. He's massive in front, and he tapers off in the rear. I mean, that's like they would say about a man narrow in the hip. You know, what would they say? Narrow in the hip and what? Broad in the shoulders? Yeah. And he'd do the same thing when you look at him from above. Yeah. If we let's look at this stage here. If I bought 5 men up here, let's just work with 3 because the stage isn't that big. 3 men up here, and I say sit side by side until you're touching. Where are they going to touch? Shoulders. If I bring their wives up there, where are they going to touch? That's the way it's supposed to be. Most people in most countries they look at the ideal fat steer and say that's what we want, and they try to make their cows look like rectangles and their bulls look like rectangles, and they're subfertile. The other thing I want to point out here, a lot of people, my dad used to do this by this bull, he has no calving. He says, my mic still on? Okay. Because he's so massive up there. But he didn't look that way the day he was born, did he? You know, that's a testosterone thing. That's a calving ease bull. Very good calving ease bull. Okay, I'm going to wind it up here. Cow-calf producers are in the business of converting free solar energy into a high-quality food product. Properly done, the cow will do most of the work for us. Another Earl cartoon. Earl shows off the new bull he bought at the spring sale. Over on the right side, Earl trails his new bull home in the fall. There's not very many ranchers in the U.S. that don't experience that.